Thank you very much for being
Thank
here.
you guys.
I wanted to just start and break it up by explaining a little bit where you grew up. Tell us a little bit more about your childhood, because I think that explains a lot the company culture that you've got at Harbour.Space, and how we're gonna be telling how what are the skills required to be an entrepreneur nowadays. And I think I wanted to give some background to the people.
So I was lucky or unlucky. All my life I thought I was very unlucky to grow up in Mariupol, which is a city that you probably suddenly actually know, you know. It's a city that had 500,000 people. I say had because it's wiped out, at the moment. So when I was growing up, I think it was a very dangerous city. It was a city where you have to be like hyper vigilant because any moment something could happen to you. And it was a city, I would say, with no hope, no future. I somehow felt it. It was a working class city. All steel mills. The city supplied about 15% of all the metal in the Soviet Union. So when you go out in the morning and you try to breathe in, you typically kind of breathe in a lot of metal. You can see it in the balcony, right? So I have, mixed kind of memories, a lot of hardships, especially between 1991, between the collapse of the Soviet Union and the sort of, I guess, the boom between 2004 and 2008, between the financial crisis. There was a short period when things were going well for people in the city, but otherwise we had problems with water supplies. We had issues from 1991 to 1996 with electricity. So you kind of grow up in the city and you want to get out, really. And I was talking to a lot of friends of mine, hey, let's get out, let's go somewhere, some other place. I was famous for being an escaper. I would escape regularly, like 2-3 times a year, take a train, but then they would catch me and bring me back to my parents. And I grew up with a single mother who was a teacher for 30 years. And for 6 years, between 1991 and 1997, unfortunately, she didn't get paid at all. So she was working, but she wasn't being paid. Because there was a system in the Soviet Union that you had to, if you wanted to get a flat, you had to wait in a queue of like 15-20 years. And we were by that time, by 1991, already in the queue for 15 years. And it was silly to resign from her work, although the work wasn't being paid, because she would lose the queue, right? We then got this apartment and now it's bombed, right? It was bombed twice. First time in 2014, which brought me here. And now again in April. So 6 years I was stealing food to eat. I had to either steal or I had to work. I dropped out of school about 3 times until... But my mother was a teacher, so she asked me to return. She asked me to, at some point, to sort of go back, because she said, it's over my dead body. I cannot imagine my girl, the only girl she had, right? I was the only child, a single mother, that I wouldn't finish a school. I think in hindsight, it was a great decision that she insisted on that, because what I was doing when I was not in school, I was from 6 in the morning working in the market. When the workers from the steel mills were going to work, I was selling them something in the morning, and then all until like 1 a.m. when the last shift was finished and they were coming back. So all day I was working, selling stuff and getting a bit of commission, 10% commission from selling whatever that I could get on commission from other people, because I didn't have capital to invest. And then when my mother really begged me to go back to school, to finish school, I said, I cannot go back to school, because if I go back to school, we don't eat again. And I said, if I find a job that is compatible with my going to school. And this brings me soon back to Harbour.Space, why I created the kind of university it is, that combines work and study at the same time. So I found a job as a DJ at night. I was lucky. I joined a radio station, Europe Plus, which was a French commercial first radio station in the ex-Soviet Union, and I worked at night as a DJ. During the day I studied, during the night I worked as a DJ, so that allowed me to feed my family. So, when you become a head of the family early, because my mother was, teachers, doctors, and engineers, it didn't occur to them that they could sell something. They were not configured that way. They couldn't adapt to what happened with the country, from communism to capitalism. So then after school I went to, I had a dream to go and work for this radio station in the headquarters, and I wasn't really particularly welcomed, but it took me about a month, and every day, seeing the director of the radio station in the headquarters, to get this job, I was every morning standing in front of him with new program that I created at night. And I was giving it to him, asking to read, and saying that this is a great program. I'm full of these ideas. I'm full of this kind of programs that the listeners will really like. And after 1 month, he gave up because he was tired of seeing me every day. And so I got that job, and then he told me, he was the person that really changed my life. And I want to say that it's really important to listen to what people tell you. And he said, Lana, you're young, and we took you. We gave you this job. And it's interesting and nice that you're a 16-year-old and funny little girl, right, and very active. But as time will go by, it won't be that interesting anymore. So you have to study. You have to, become a professional, and at the first opportunity, learn English. And that kind of stick in my mind that, at the first opportunity I should learn English. But how do you learn English? Where do you get the money to learn English? And then I was lucky at 18. I met I was so tired of being in Moscow. I had a Ukrainian passport. I couldn't be hired properly officially because the Ukrainians didn't have the same rights in Moscow. And they had to hire me illegally, so they had to pay other people who had the rights to be paid, and then they would take cash and give me. I lived 1 year on a railway station in Moscow. It was not easy, it was not funny, and I had to be clean and sharp in the morning, at work. So I was really tired of surviving. I was it was really hard for so many years since I was a kid. Surviving, and especially Moscow, really killed me. This living on the railway. So when I met my husband by chance, I just hailed a taxi, and then the guy stops and, turns out to be my husband. I was 18 that I got married, and he asked me, I was lucky that he asked me, he said, you're still so young, you must have a dream. What's your dream? And I said, my dream is to learn English. And he said, well, why not? I mean, what does it take? And I said, well, it cost about $10,000 at the time, which was really a lot of money. It was like a price of a flat in Moscow. He was a bit shocked, like, wow, that's a lot of money. But, he gave me this money, and he said, are you sure you don't want a flat instead? I said, no, I really want to learn English. And I was lucky that, and then later I studied in Finland, and I got my bachelor's in Finland, and then in Switzerland, because I thought that all my life the problems that I had were primarily because I didn't have money. So I decided, I was thinking, where is the money? If I get the money one day, then my problems will be gone. And I thought, the money is in the bank, so I should become a banker. So, and then where do you learn about banking? In Switzerland. So I went to study to Switzerland. I actually became, in Finland when I was studying, I became the 20 best students of the world. So I had that potential in me, and luckily it was discovered, right, or self-discovered, or thanks to my husband's investment into me, his belief, his ability to let me go and study just right after I got married. And and later the scholarships from here, from Europe, from the European universities like Helsinki School of Economics, where I studied, and then St. Gallen University in Switzerland also on a scholarship, and then I got a scholarship from here, from Barcelona. A friend of mine, I was in Switzerland at the time, planning to stay there for my PhD to become a financial engineer. And a friend of mine called me and says, I think I found the best city on the planet. You have to come and check it out. I'm like, which city? And she's like, Barcelona. So I come here, I really fall in love with the city. And then she says, why don't you apply? There is a new university, it just opened, Pompeu Fabra, Graduate School of Finance and Economics. And I applied, and it was the first year they opened the program. And we were the lucky 90 people that were fully sponsored, including living allowance, which allowed me really to, again, experience another city. And so I was grateful for what happened to me, for these opportunities that Europe gave me. And I decided later, when I became a banker, I had another example of why you should listen to people. A program director here in Barcelona, in Pompeu Fabra, called me up and said, you should not do a PhD in economics. I was looking at him like, my God, it's like being in a church and a priest tells you there's no God, I didn't know what to say, I was planning to do my PhD, and he said, no, you're too active. He said, I can see you. You're really too active. You should go and work. This research thing is not for you. Besides, he said, 95% of all this financial and economic models is a waste of time. It doesn't work. I was like, wow, if this guy's telling me he's a program director.
Maybe he doesn't want me or something, right?
No, but very grateful. I actually stay in touch with him. Kalista, Kalista, Valery, was recommended by him, actually. Yeah. So anyways, and he said for me to start a career. Luckily, he did it, because it really depends on what moment in your life you start working. And luckily, it was 2006. It was still a booming market. Now we're entering kind of a declining market, but it was a booming market. And for 2 years, I got to do so many things in the bank. I became a banker at Citibank. Decided to do what I always knew how to do, sales, because that was something that was natural by that time. I was not born to be a salesperson, but I made myself into.
That's how you survive.
Yeah. Selling, communicating, selling, and I became the best salesperson for them in the world. Many times over, every year I was the best producer. I was at the end making $150 million in profit, just me, for the bank. So I got paid really a lot of money, and went from nothing, from a negative, absolutely no prospect in my life, to really, suddenly a person that didn't know what to do with this kind of money. Or it really changed me. And for a while I got lost, like these footballers, that get, when they're young, a lot of money and they don't know what to do. And I was a little bit deranged for some time, but then I kind of grabbed myself together in my mind and started thinking that I should do something. And trust me, when you get a lot of money like I did, at some point you don't want to go to work anymore. Like, if the work is not meaningful. And that's what kind of, you get depressed, because you have already a lot of money on your account and you do this meaningless job, and you think, why do you have to do it anymore? You have enough money for the rest of your life. So I thought that I shouldn't waste not just my money, but my talents on this, right? So I thought, if I'm so good at sailing and I am maybe talented in something, I should dedicate this talent to helping other people to get education, to discover their full potential. Because there's so many people that are not lucky to have met a husband like I did, who gave them money. I wouldn't be sitting here without him, really. That one thing, that one person changed my entire life. And I thought I should become that one person for people, around me, if I can. And instead of giving people just the money, I thought it's better that I give them education, because if I teach them how to fish, they will fish for the rest of their life, right? I was always completely driven by this idea that you have to give them something so tangible that they can survive for the rest of their life and never go back to where they are. So I think for the rest of my life, until the last breath I take, I will be solving this problem for others, because I know this, it comes from my own pain.
Let me stop you there for a second, because
That was long.
no, however, it's super inspirational. And one thing that fucks me off about entrepreneurship and business events is I always get to interview rich people and lucky people. Most of them are lucky because they're born rich, right? So people in events, they're going to tell you, like, follow your dreams, follow your passion. It's because they're already fucking rich. They were born rich, they were born privileged. So there's not much we can take from these stories. And I'd rather interview every month somebody like you who has had to grind it out day after day, week after week, taking the social elevator that sometimes it exists, rather than like interviewing this rich white folk that just had been born rich, has a very meaningful surname, and raised 50 million in the Series A. I was like, what's your secret? It's like, yeah, no, well, I did the MBA, like I took risks. It's like, of course you took risks, motherfucker. You didn't have to pay for your family. You never cared about being left out of society because you took a wrong decision. You never starved, never nothing. So that's why I really appreciate your sharing this story, this kind of story. We gotta have more visibility for stories like this, because I personally, I learn more from people like you. So please, big first applause for Sveta, because hats off. We don't get stories like this on stage. It's always like people who were born rich, and it's like, what can you learn from them? Of course you can learn from them, but to my knowledge, it's like not so much. Like, I understand. I come from an underprivileged as well background, working class family. I had to, not, of course, this kind of stories as born alone, but I understand the value of money. I understand that maybe if my family had to take the risk of paying for my studies, they couldn't pay for my dental health, or we wouldn't have vacations that year. Whereas most of the people, 11 out of 12 people I interview on stage every year, they never had to care about money. So why should we learn about business from people like that, right? So that's why I really appreciate stories like yours. So circling back to my previous point, is people born in a abundance mindset, abundance environments, they think differently from people who are born in scarcity environments. And in different measures, but you and I come from scarcity environments, and we had to fight for every penny. And probably we know how to make money, and this is going to give us some skills to survive in economic downturns and in hard times. How do you think this, your background and upbringing, had shaped you as an entrepreneur or saleswoman?
Well, I mean, definitely in a sort of major way, because you are ready to work any job. At least I'm still ready to work any job. I'm always the first one to do the most. I love work. I genuinely love working. It can be anything. I love helping.
Your employees told me the same. So yeah, you love working.
And this is crazy for a lot of people. Like, the one thing I cannot tolerate is when people are not going all in. I go all in. If I do something, I really do it with all my guts, with all my passion, with all my talent, and with a lot of love for this. And I'm just trying to make things work. Like, from nothing, absolutely nothing. If you give me nothing, I still will make things happen. Like, I don't have a plan B. I always have only plan A. And I know I will make it happen, no matter what. I never give up. Never give up. I just don't have it in me.
But in this, going back to the scarcity versus abundance mentality, one of the things that I realized in this transition to like being poor as a kid and then growing up and making suddenly money is the way you accept risk is different. Like, when you don't have a lot of stakes, or you don't have a lot of chips in your poker table, because if you do one mistake, you're out of the game. of course, you cannot take risks. You have to be very conservative. You think day to day. But as an entrepreneur and businessman or businesswoman, when you grow, then all of a sudden you can like, oh, now I've got more chips on the table. I can take bigger risks. It's not fair for other people, but I have to accept. I have to change my mentality. This is something I'm still struggling with, right? How have you trained yourself to accept the new mentality that, you got more chips on the table and you can take bigger risks, and it's okay to suddenly lose 10,000 euros in a project that did go nowhere, where those 10,000 euros could have paid for your English education 10 years ago, or can help another family out there. Or, I don't know, for me, I still struggle with this nowadays. How have you rewired your brain?
Or, when I was even growing up, when I was, my mom, before leaving house, was always asking me every day, please don't give everything you have. Because I was known to her that, by night, if she comes back, there will be nothing in the fridge. I would give everything away to kids. I was growing in a dormitory, in a common dormitory. So I knew a lot of people, and I was constantly giving away everything. So, for me, Alex, I don't ever feel, if I give something away, that I have less, even if I always gave away everything I had. Very often, like I think I had over 100 or more, 1,000 times when I gave everything to other people that I had. If I trust that this is the right thing to do, there's a really good cause for it.
Do you think it's easier for you to give away because you didn't have anything to start with?
No, because I think, at the end of the day, what is the worst thing that can happen to me, right? Like all the most valuable thing that I have is within my brain, right? So unless something happens to me, like I get sick or I cannot think anymore, but I think I can always recover. Like, I don't know how I will recover or what it would take, but I'm not afraid. But I play it safe by, making sure that it's kind of calculated risk. You have to be very skillful as an entrepreneur. That's the problem. It's like very few people. I would not recommend people to be entrepreneurs.
Okay. No, that's good.
Sorry about it, but
No, but it's good because as you grow financially and your business becomes more stable, you became a banker. Obviously, you grew a safety net. Most entrepreneurs have a safety net because of their surname, because of their previous jobs and whatever. First-time entrepreneurs very rarely have it if we come from underprivileged backgrounds, right? So, I don't know. That's kind of like one of the things that I have suffered is this one, rewiring my brain. The second one is social acceptance in circles where people without certain surnames are not accepted, right? So, you don't come from a big family. It's like, where did you grow up? Oh, there. I was like, oh, what are you doing here? This is a social circle only for people coming from big families. Did you encounter any kind of situation like that?
I used to get a postcard for my birthday from friends. Even friends did it to me. The postcard would say, girls who behave badly after they die get back to Mariupol. This would be like written on my postcard. I was like, bloody hell, I don't want to go back. But yeah, I mean, I always had that stigma being from Mariupol, Like people would be like, they would say it to like, what, that you can never be as good as we are, if you are from Mariupol. That's true. But it never sinked into my head. I was, you can say to me as many times as you want that I'm from Mariupol. Now I'm fine with it. I'm kind of okay with it. I don't mind. I don't even get, angry at this. I'm taking it as a compliment.
No, of course. You never have to forget your roots and take as much pride as possible, because I think it's very important to explain your story, gives context and whatnot. But let's take a look into the future now. So you create Harbour.Space, and we've known each other for like 6 years now.
Eight.
8?
Or 7. Yeah. It was 2016.
2016. It's 8 years already. That's 6 years.
Then 6, yeah.
Now, I'm not good at numbers, but
no, you're right, because I started in
I was like-
2014, and if it's 16,
yeah, and you've been very supportive of Startup Grind since the very beginning. You were actually one of the first sponsors we had, so thank you for that. And but the thing is, like, I always like how you prepare students for an uncertain future, which is nowadays it's pretty clear that the future is uncertain, but in 2016 it's like things are going great.
I don't think like for everybody is certain, right? Like I think people in the audience, do you guys think the future is uncertain, or who thinks the future is uncertain, or who thinks the future is like
who thinks
bright?
about the future? Like
Who cares about the future?
I can't plan shit anymore for like longer than a week. But like my point being, 2016 things were stable. The markets were growing already.
Things were great, guys. Like honestly, like if you compare that environment to now,
Yeah. So my point is like now the world is coming to a place where the world is volatile, is uncertain, is ambiguous, and is ever changing. How do you prepare your students for this shitty future? How can you plan for the long term?
well, I think you have to just prepare for everything. You have to prepare. So how do we do this, right? Like first, every student at Harbour.Space has to act as an entrepreneur in the first 3 weeks of Harbour.Space. So they have to build a company from scratch with Kamran, who you know very well, from zero to hero. He has a signature course. So everyone, really, every student, even if you're a designer or computer scientist, or if you're, coming for digital marketing, you really have to leave it through. And in the beginning, they think it's not real, And then day after day, days go by, the third day and the fourth day, and it's 15 days altogether. By day 15, they actually start feeling like entrepreneurs, They start feeling this burning things underneath, time is running out, money is running out, everything.
What's the pressure on them? What kind of pressure do you...
Because they study one subject at a time, and they learn in sprints, So they only have 15 days to master something that typically takes a semester in the normal university. So they do it in really quick sprints. And every day matters. If you only have 15 days, right? Every day means something. So when I was in this system of sprints since Finland. So Finland pioneered this system 30 years ago. And what it does to you, to your brain, this sprint system, is when you get out and you start working for someone, and that someone gives you an assignment, like, make a presentation, you do it immediately. You do it in one day. I started with Citibank. My boss, who is now working with me, Svetlana, another Svetlana, she gave me an assignment and she said, when do you think it can be done? And I said, well, tonight. It wasn't even a question for me. It didn't take me 2 weeks or 1 week. It was tonight. And you do everything yourself. You learn to do everything, absolutely everything yourself. And the second thing, and I think it's the most important thing, how to prepare young people for tomorrow in general. I'll tell you what I think. Whether you're poor or whether you're rich, it doesn't matter. We have both categories at the uni. We have people who paid for themselves. We have people who we had to pay to have. Both of these people, doesn't matter. If they fall in love with something, then our job is done. They will continue learning. They will continue going, Alex, like they will never stop. If they fall in love with some subject or something, some topic, some meaning, some idea, and our job as educators is really help them find this thing, put them in front of a lot of interesting people. So that they really run on their own ideas, on their own, love of discovery and things like that, right? I worked for 2 years in a radio station. Practically, I was lucky if I had money for one bread, right? And I still wanted to work there because I liked it. I just wanted to be near those people. And it doesn't matter. If you love something, it doesn't matter. You don't think about the money. And that is where we have to get the people, to that kind of state of mind, that it doesn't matter the money. What matters is you love it. And that's what puts people on the success path, on thinking also creatively about different situations, how to get over that, because their motivation to get there is so strong. So it's motivating people that is the most important. It doesn't really matter how you get motivated or for what. It doesn't matter. Because for each one of you guys here or people like students that we have, it's the same. Don't take drugs. This is for... It's awful, honestly. Next time
Not
you
coming
can
from
invite
personal
me.
experience, right?
No,
No,
it's
yeah, just
not
kidding.
coming. It's coming from the experience of me seeing kids in the uni. You know,
All
it's awful. I mean, don't take drugs, really.
Don't do it. Not a lot.
And don't die.
No, just kidding. Circling back to the point, was that? Don't kill. Yeah, don't kill other people.
Don't give other people drugs.
Don't give other people, then don't kill. Yeah, that's great takeaways around today. Now,
I saw even strong people falling for drugs, honestly. But
yeah, I know.
it's crazy how bad it is. Like this marijuana thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry but
I wanted to touch on very specifically, Ben Horowitz describes two different phases for a startup: peacetime and wartime. I know probably it's not the most appropriate terms for tonight, but let's put it like struggling times. They require two different CEOs, and very, very few CEOs are shaped to be peacetime and wartime CEOs, right? Right now we're entering into, we've been into 2 shitty years. However, things have worked out pretty okay for most startups. 2020 was sort of like a miracle. Everybody grew. 2021, everybody was kind of like, okay. And now, boom, valuations have slashed. The money's gone. VCs are not funding new companies. So the general advice out there is raise money for the next 24 months. But very few VCs are going to fund your company. And with regards to that, you have, I don't know if we can talk about that. You have fundraised, right?
Today,
so what was the
closed around
strategy and why did you do it and how it went for you?
Well, it was one of the hardest rounds to raise, to be honest. To me, it took about, today we spoke about it, that's why I know the numbers, 1.3 years to close this round. So if you start yesterday and you need it, forget about it. Like it really takes...
But that's your second round only. You raised in the beginning
in
and
the
6 years after.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
what was the strategy?
We had to raise, first of all, and actually there was no good news, that I could give to investors because we had COVID, and during COVID we lost a lot of money. We lost during COVID 2 times more money than in the first 5 years. Imagine. So this was really tough, and I never thought, we needed the money when we first raised it, right? It was kind of, I think it's very, it's not it's not something to celebrate when you raise money, in fact, right? Because that means that your business is not going as expected. So usually it's not the sign of strength, right? It's a sign of necessity of something, right? And also just in case, because what COVID taught everybody was, at least what COVID taught me, that these events that are really bad for your business can happen much more often and they can take a lot longer than you think. Because how many of you thought in March that it would last for so long, right? I thought by May we would be out and things would be fine, right? So we didn't prepare for that. And then also, what do you do with people, Do you cut some people out? Do you keep, or do you cut everyone's salary? And, what do you do? There's so many uncertainties, and really having 2 years with no revenues is very hard. While, we just moved to a new campus, we had, our expenses went like 3 times up. And then, this happens during COVID, and this is awful, right? And, you've already invested into real estate. You cannot pull it out. It was really nuts. So you develop certain fear. So out of, why did we raise now? Out of fear. I have just finished this funding round because I was thinking, what if it happens again? Okay, we had COVID, now the war. Something can happen again. Something will happen for sure. Something bad.
That's my point. Something will happen
will
again
happen,
in a very short
100%.
time.
Yeah, in a very short. It can happen anytime. You always have to have something for the rainy day. How, whether it's 24 months of your runway or I don't know. The longer the better. To be honest, you shouldn't be. I think if things are successful, then it doesn't matter if you owe 55% of a company or 50% of the company or I don't know 30% of the company. There's enough money for you. But you're I think in startups you probably heard about the infinite run. I don't know if you've heard about it, right? It's like when you
To race continuously.
no, when you break even, when you
Okay. Yeah.
just cover your cost, it just means that you kind of, you survive and you can just go on looking for the product market fit, right? Before, looking for growth, but profitable growth, not profitless growth, right? Because, I think profitless growth today, when you purchase your customers, it's not sustainable, and definitely nobody likes it, right? So how we were raising, I'm a big fan of angel investors. I'm a huge fan of angel investors, especially when you are new to entrepreneurship, because you don't really know yet what these different clauses are, and you better stick to simple things, very simple founder friendly things as long as you can. It's not about putting a badge I raised from big guys and this is something cool. I mean, it's brands. At the end of the day, you should look at substance, right? And if your friends are giving you money, I think it's great. So I had connections over time. I think the most important thing for entrepreneurs is relationship building. I think you have to really know how to build relationships and keep relationships. And always when you leave your work or job or a friendship or your partner, try to leave a person in such a way that you can always go back to this person. Always think about it like relationships are infinitely more important than money, infinitely more important than anything. Really, I cannot stress this point more. Everything that I raised is based on super huge trust from people. Huge trust. These people really trust me. That I'm I'm a reasonable person and they can, rely on what I say, and that I'm not going to give up and I will do everything in my power to protect their money, And this only is possible because people trust you. And it comes from a word of mouth. So some person recommended someone to meet me, I'm meeting. Of course, I tell the story of how important it is. It's an impact investment, blah, 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 right? It's not blah, blah, blah. It's true, right? But I mean, I'm saying it for the sake of saying. So it's based on personal, deep relationships that you have in your life from previous jobs, from gigs that you had, from some encounters. So I take relationships super, super seriously with people. And usually this comes from 20-year vintage relationships, this kind of connections. I mean, if you don't have relationships like that are really meaningful and deep and trustworthy, I think it's very hard to come to an investor, pitch it on a PowerPoint. There's nothing, right? Who will trust you? And we had, I think, something interesting. In August this year, we had a little window that we had to close the deal, round A. And on the day of signing, although I always tell to people, don't spend money before you have the money on the account. Don't promise, don't start spending this money. And it happened to me this time, on the day of signing the round. And we were lucky. I thought we were lucky because we had one big fund that was taking the entire round. So I had an agreement, negotiated everything. We shook hands. We were just, working on the documentation. So I didn't really look for anybody. So I didn't have any plan B. I had these guys and they were supposed to sign. On the day of signing, they had a problem. Their SPAC went bust. They had a board meeting on which this was supposed to be signed, and then, something happened with their board. One member went against all the others and they sued. I mean, anyways, it's a mess, And we were left without an investor, and we had only 1 month to, I had only 1 month to figure.
Company would have had to shut down.
No, I never take it to this. Never do it like that. Never, if you can, right?
You call the bankers, right?
No, we would have been fine. No, we would have been fine. But I mean, in general, it's just that I would have lost this window of opportunity to close, right? So I had only 1 month. And if you think about it, you start fundraising a month before you close, impossible, right? But we made it. So never, just keep cool, calm. Don't give up until, just do everything in your power. I think it's very important that you keep super cool about good things and bad things. And also you have to get prepared mentally for these bad things, and this was a bad thing, happening to you all the time. It's like every day something bad is happening. It's just a matter of magnitude, how bad. Little bad or really
So positive.
big bad.
I love it.
It's true.
Yeah, optimistic.
You have to be super good about it. Like, you have to be loving unfucking problems. I think, Alex Malov.
Alex Malov, yeah.
Alex Malov on the
Chief
first day,
Unfuck Officer.
bloody hell, I met the guy and he said, Lana, startups are about unfucking problems.
Yeah.
Now I understand it.
Yep.
What he said, this line, I didn't understand it 80 years ago. I can tell you, it's constantly unfucking problems. From humongous problems to small problems, it's always problems. All the people come to you with problems. People never come to you with solutions. People never come to you to say, my God, I have this amazing news, blah, blah, blah.
No. They come to the CEO only with bad news.
And the other thing is, nobody's going to take care, like, really be like you in this. Like,
No.
Nobody. And you feel like, and you should kind of learn to feel okay about it. And about the peacetime, right? And once you can afford, get a proper manager, because I realized that as an entrepreneur, I'm not a good manager. I'm not born a manager. That's why I'm an entrepreneur, right?
Okay. Like operations people, project manager, or office manager? What kind of manager?
People manager, because it's all about the people.
Yeah. Okay.
It's all about the people. It's all about your team. It's all about like how you can see their talents and place them in a great place, in the organization. Provide this atmosphere where they can really feel it's a creative place. You cannot pay a lot, right, if you are a startup. So you have to give something else in return. And that something else, it's love, first of all. Like, people want to be next to you. People want to, but, people don't want, people don't want to be scared of you, and it's like, number one thing that, you can, or I hear all the time, is people are scared of me at work. And people are scared. Like, I don't think I'm scary, but, people feel like that. So you have to, like, I realize that it will take me a couple of years of therapy, psychotherapy to change, and I have to do it. I really have to do it. But, if I was looking for someone, and I constantly needed to bring someone into the organization for cooling things down, sometimes a temporary manager, professional manager. You need a professional manager. You have to balance yourself with a professional manager. I think if you're not ready to, and people don't change overnight, it's hard to, like for me, I'm like, there's no crying in baseball. Why do you tell me there's a problem? Like, how, go and figure that out. And I like that, right? I like bosses that were like, oh, Lana, I need, get this. How you get it, I don't care. Just get it done. And I was like, okay, that's cool. This is something that energizes me. But for a lot of people, it's not the case, right? Because you cannot pay them a lot. So you work with all kinds of people. In the beginning, you work with really weird people. Honestly.
You mean entrepreneurs?
No, people like, I took people that didn't speak English. I was like, that's okay, guys, we're going to learn English.
Yeah, because you were in Barcelona, of course.
Yeah, no, seriously. I was taking people, whoever wanted to join. I was like, you ready for a ride? You ready to learn? Okay, come on board. We're going to do it. And I will teach you how to sell, and I will teach you this and that, and it's hard because, you have to be like with babies, it's like, you know what I mean? But it's also a cool period. But you never become a manager. Still, I think you never become a manager. So for the peacetime, I think really cool thing is get yourself a manager who can do this kind of job, and yourself focus on your strength. I'm a big fan of focusing on your strength, not improving your super weakness. For example, I don't code. I train world champions in computer science, but I don't code myself. So it would take me forever to learn coding. Why would I do it, right? So, you better focus on like whatever your strong suit is and really get the right people with you. You probably cannot afford a lot of people like that. You can maybe have one or two. in my case, I was lucky with my group CFO. I think having a great CFO is super important because there's so much documentation, there's so much reporting on a company. It's crazy. You don't think about it in the beginning, but it takes like it can he's occupied 24/7.
And they deal with bankers because they're
No,
terrible people.
banks-
Not you, but they're all terrible people.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. Honestly, it's like. Anyways, Alex, I don't know
All right.
if I answered your question. Yeah.
That's a good segue for the. I mean, I had other questions, but we have to go into the open mic. But you gave me a very good segue into the last question, signature question. So you gave us your superpower, which is focusing on your best strength. But what is your useless superpower? That's something you do exceptionally well, but it's fucking useless. You do it every day, like misplacing your socks, pocket calling the wrong people. Do it every day. You don't have anything like that?
I have like 100,000 unanswered emails.
Very good. Always,
But a
every
lot
day?
of them are like leads, I cannot read every lead.
And still your business stays afloat.
No, I want to get them, but I still want to get them, although I know I'm not going to open them. But I want to get them. Huh?
Get another manager. Sales manager. All
I'm
right.
looking for an executive assistant, by the way, if anybody wants to work with
That's the first open mic. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Sveta.
Well, for the team,
Thank
not
you.
just for me.